Vinaka, Fiji, and a warm welcome to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. With me, Louise Kaunisela. Our guest in the studio today is from the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, and she's the coordinator, Shamima Ali, who has kindly made the time to have a chat with us today. Shamima, thank you for joining us, and great to have you back.
Yes, great to be back here.
Well, Shamima, you're well known in the country for the good work that you do at the Crisis Center. But on a personal note, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow.
Or maybe, where you grew up and where you went to school.
Yeah. I grew up, I had the good fortune and the privilege to grow up both in Nandi, Nawaka in Nandi, and in Natoloa in Nerailo Maiviti, because my maternal links are from there and paternal are from the west. So that's how I grew up. Yes. I went to school at Andrews Primary School in Nandi, and 4 generations of my family have gone to that school by now. And then I finished off, I went a bit to Dudley, Assemblies of God, then I ended up at Natumbua and I finished off there. And then I went to USP and became a teacher and went to Ngau to teach.
Oh, see, even I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that makes interesting, something to talk about different before we actually go into what we're going to cover today. So I suppose we'll get straight into it. Now, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which is from the 25th November, and it's up to 10th December on Human Rights Day. Now, what does the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence campaign involve? But by the way, I do know that you happen to be one of the founders of it in Fiji.
Yeah. Not in Fiji, actually. We met at Rutgers University in New Jersey in 1991, 25 women from all over the world.
Oh, okay.
And I was picked from the Pacific because of the work that we had, all the pioneering work that by that time the Fiji Women's Crisis Center had done both in Fiji and beginning to work in the Pacific. So we were there, we met, and we talked about the issue of violence against women, the high rates in all our regions, and we started preparing for 1993, which was the big UN global conference on human rights. And the whole idea was there was so much violence, all forms, rape, sexual assault, dowry deaths in India, domestic violence, the survivors of child sexual abuse. So all these things, and child trafficking, prostitution, forced prostitution, the crimes against lesbian women, how they were sexually assaulted and so on, corrective rape and things that were conducted on them. So there was a whole lot of discussion. And what we found, because it was like there was an epidemic throughout the world at that time. I'm talking about 1991, so it had been going on for quite a while.
Yes.
And we talked about it, we discussed, and we started looking at strategies, and particularly aiming it to that 1993 convention in Vienna. And we took out, and the whole idea was to let the world sit up, make the world sit up and address this as not a private matter anymore, and stop blaming the victims and survivors of this type of violence, and really to recognize it as a gross violation of women's human rights. And we did a petition up, and a lot of people around the Pacific, we sent it around by snail mail. At that time, we were not so fast with our social media stuff and so on. So all these signatures were collected, and we also at that time declared that we needed to have a very intense campaign around ending violence against women. So these were the dates that were decided. 25th of November is the International Day for ending violence, all forms of violence against women. And then it ends, as you said, on the 10th of December, which is the World Human Rights Day. And in between, you have many other days, so we have the White Ribbon Day on the 6th of December, which marks the Montreal massacre, where this man gunned down 16 female engineering students in a school cafeteria because he couldn't get a place. And he said these were all feminists and these women got a place in that cause. So he gunned them down, and there's shock and horror around Canada. And men stood up at that time in Canada and said, we have to take responsibility and we have to do something about it. So that's how the White Ribbon campaign is within that. And there are many other days. The World AIDS Day is on December the 1st. And so on that day, we look at the vulnerability of women through rape and other forms of sexual assault to HIV/AIDS and STIs and so on, you know. So we link it to violence against women. And I think World Children's Day is somewhere around there. So looking at violence against children, sexual violence, and other sorts of violence. So that's how. And then what we do throughout the world. This campaign is now in almost 190 countries around the world, and it has been going on since 1991. And this is when we do all kinds of campaigns, and particularly media campaigns and workshops and protest marches and all those things. So all kinds of activities that really brings to people's notice the 16 days and violence against women. So now what is really good is, since we've been doing it since 1991, and I just also want to say that the first day, we already recognized 25th of November, and the first march in Fiji was in 1988, in November 1988. Then on 25th of November, we marched to end all forms of violence against women, and we marked that day. So now, Crisis Center, who used to run around doing all the activities, what is good to see is that everyone else is organizing activities, faith-based organizations, government, UN agencies, NGOs, civil societies. Everyone is doing something, so we can sit back and just get invited to functions and to participate. And I was a chief guest at the Catholic Women's League in Lamy this morning, and that was a great thing. So they're organizing and we are participating.
So you must feel, really good about this, because, I mean, from 1988, I mean, obviously this is one of the great achievements of this 16 days of marking activism. So, since 1988 till now, so you can say that, I mean, that's one of the reasons you're saying that, everyone is involved now. So that's one of the achievements you see. Do you see any other achievements?
No, yes, look, we still have very high rates of violence in our country, like we have 64% of women have been beaten up in their lives, in their homes, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, either by their husbands, partners, boyfriends. Right. 64% is very high. We believe that 2 in 5 women get raped, and 16% of women before the age of 15 have had some kind of forced sexual experience. So these are high rates, and they continue to be that high. But what is good is that the awareness, that is the achievement, and so many people have come to the table about this. It's on everyone's agenda now, including governments and so on, and our government particularly, So that is what the achievement is. And women are reporting. Women are recognizing their rights. We have good legislation and so on. They recognize all the awareness that we have done and other people are now doing, but we've done years and years of awareness throughout to get here. It's hard work.
Very hard work.
That is what we can celebrate, the fact that people are now saying this is bad and standing up against it. But there still is a whole lot of work that needs to be done.
Oh, dear. But anyway, that's really good. But you quoted on media recently that 80% of women and girls raped in the country are raped by people known to them, and half of the time the offender is a family member. That's like common knowledge now. Yes. And is it still happening a lot?
Oh, yes. I can tell you, just last week we had 2 cases of father-in-law harassing the daughter-in-law, sexually harassing the daughter-in-law, and one, the father-in-law actually raping a daughter-in-law. And we've got a father who has been raping his daughter, even though she's married, and he still feels he's got rights over her, and he's got a history of that. He's a real father. So, just in these last 3 weeks, I can tell you 3 cases of a very close, people who are doing this. So 80% people known to them, doctors, teachers, priests, all these people, father's friend, family friend, neighbor, landlord, tenant, all these people that are known to us, they are in a place of trust. And then of that, 50% are blood relatives.
That is terrible, disgusting actually. But hey, we'll be back shortly on Speak Your Mind. Gold FM, only the classic hits. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. We're talking today with Shamima Ali from the Fiji Women's Crisis Center. And it's always lovely talking to you because, I mean, you reveal everything so honestly. I mean, obviously because you work for the FWWC. So, I mean, you were saying, I mean, all these things, what women have to go through, being abused by their family members, even their own fathers. But I noticed there was a sentence to a grandfather. I noticed, and he got 12 years.
Yes.
So do you think that sentence is justified compared maybe to before?
Oh, yes, definitely. One of the things that really spurred the women who started the crisis center in 1983 to meet and start discussing all these things is because they would read in the papers, a man has stolen 2 bullocks and he got 3 years imprisonment. Then on the same page, you'll have a woman was raped and the perpetrator got 18 months.
Okay.
And things. So the bullocks are more important and have more value than a woman's life, like she's been raped and so on. So that's one of the things. So that's the kind of sentencing we've had over the years, not being taken seriously. And, the woman who's been raped, the survivor, she becomes actually the culprit, and the perpetrator becomes the victim because, we blame the woman because of the dress you wear, because of, the way where you were, you went clubbing, you went drinking with the boys, and things like that. So all those things. What is the good thing now is we lobbied very hard. Even, former chief justices and where didn't we go and, and lobby and advocate and so on. So now what we're seeing is a result of that, the long-term lobbying by the feminist women's group. And now we are seeing better sentencing. We're seeing the backlog being addressed. We're seeing the DPP taking out data every end of the month. So these are good things that are happening, and we are really happy with the kind of sentencing that goes on. But to get there is the difficult part. To get to court is the most difficult part for women because of all the things that, the obstacles along the way. What we would like to see is, even if someone is sentenced for why we're saying it should be more is to show the seriousness of the crime, that it is a terrible crime, committed on women's bodies. But even if they went in for 5 years, what we'd like to see within the prison system is a rehabilitation that is not about, the Bible only or the religion only, but about really bringing about change in the man's mind, the kind of treatment they need to undergo to re-educate their minds, because rape and crimes against women and children and girls, particularly against women and girls, comes out of a deep hatred for women and believing that women are actually, like second class to men, and and a total lack of respect. So they have to learn, they have to be re-educated to learn that respect and change their minds about women. And that kind of program should be going on in our correction services. And that would be able, so even, they can go in for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, but they have to come out changed men, because a lot of rapists are recidivists. They go in, nothing happens to them. Sometimes they become born again, whatever religion they belong to.
Released early?
Yes, and then released early, and, and things like that. And then they reoffend, and they're known to reoffend. So we would like them to, and that is why, we say that the education of men around this is so important. And we have a very robust male advocacy program that we are taking around the villages and so on. And it's really amazing how the men in this country have really embraced this program.
Yeah, we really need them to be a part of the fight against, the discrimination against women. Yeah. But, like how you get men to say, activists, women's rights.
Yes.
And, I mean, why would they actually have the nerve to say that?
Yes.
Because that's like what you said, that's what they think of us.
Yes, yes.
I mean, moral values, do you think it has to be taught, or is it within us?
Well, the values that as human beings that we should have. We should have compassion, we should have kindness in us, respect for each other, and those things. Those are the things that are missing. We are now taught to respect those people who have power and control. Often men, often people who are from the privileged classes, people who are leaders and so on. We are taught that these are the people. We are not taught about respecting each other within the home, the husband respecting the wife, the mother of the children, and it's only one way. Woman must respect the man, all the men in the family. She must be cooking and cleaning and all that. We don't talk about equal sharing chores equally
Responsibilities, yes.
and responsibilities and so on. When a man looks after his own child, we say, oh, the father is babysitting. No, no, no. You babysit other people's children. Your child, you are parenting, you are looking after, and you have a responsibility to do that,
Yes.
So those are the kind of mindsets that we need to change.
So, I mean, there's not only one form of abuse, like physical abuse. There's also psychological abuse, which also comes into play. So, I mean, someone can be psychologically abused and someone can be physically abused. So they're both exactly the same.
Well, you see, sometimes within a relationship, when there is physical abuse, definitely she's affected emotionally. But in some relationships, there is no physical abuse, but a lot of emotional abuse. Putting her down all the time, swearing at her, a lot of verbal abuse, not giving her money, financial control, not allowing her to do things, not allowing her to socialize as she wishes, not allowing, it's all these kinds of things. But, ordering her around in front of other people, putting her down. These are things that really ignoring her, having affairs, not paying any attention to her. All those things cause a lot of emotional abuse.
And can lead to depression as well. But we'll be back soon on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. This is Speak Your Mind on Gold FM. Only the classic hits. Thank you a lot for your sweet company. And we have our friend from the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, Shamima Ali, speaking to us. And we've also got the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which is being marked up until the 10th of December on human rights. Now, we were talking about, how partners try to get that control over women, like how we were saying earlier on. So maybe you'd like to talk more on this, of your experience, how women come in and tell you about it.
Yes. And also the survey, that national survey that we did in 2011, a lot of women talked about this. And that control is controlling all their movements, who they socialize with, how much money they can have, how much money they can't have. If she's in the workforce, the paid workforce, her paycheck goes to him. Ooh. He controls the finances and all that. But also, little things like she knows she has to be home by this certain time. And if she's not, he's watching out for her and, stalking her and things like that. He's watching her. If she's not home, she knows she lives in fear. I have to be home. A lot of women will say, I have to be home. I have to be home, because he's told her, you finish work, were you going, this time you have to be home. So that's a sort of control. Yeah. Or he drops and picks her everywhere. She doesn't go out anywhere on her own. And if he's waiting for her, she finishes work at 5, he'll be there at 4:30, revving the engine, tooting the horn, and she knows he's around, and she'll be like, like a bit uncomfortable, nervous, because he's waiting there, and there'll be consequences.
Right, so if he's late, he probably get really mad at her and yell at her or something.
So she fears that. And then nowadays, with all the technical stuff that we have, you can control your partners through the internet. Video call, where are you? If you go at a conference, who's sitting beside you, show me. At night, are you in your hotel room? Are you going out with other people?
You know what, that's what I find really funny, because I've had people I know who they take a picture where they are.
Yes.
Okay, I'm here, so I'm with my mother, or I'm with my uncle, and then they, like just exactly what you were saying.
Yes, so you have to show where you are every minute, kind of thing.
And show the evidence too.
Yes, and then sometimes, you're in another country and you're doing that, and he's in another country, and then you say to them, just tell him there's no internet. The women fears him so much, the women who are in this kind of situation, that they say, he will find out somehow. He'll find out someone that he has so much power. He will find out, So things like that. So that's coercive control is very much part of women's lives. And also when, boyfriend, girlfriend, I'm sure young people are listening here. Girls always say to me, how do you know you've met the right man, or something like that? And I say, you know what? The day he likes you as you are, you get together in a relationship. The day he starts telling you, I think you should wear some dresses with sleeves. Your skirt is too short. Wear your hair this way. Don't look here. Don't look there. Some women have to walk like this. As soon as he starts saying that, run as fast and as far as you can, because that's the kind of man who will end up beating you up and controlling your whole life. And
so that's the early signs you're talking about.
When he starts controlling.
Yes, because in every start of a relationship, it's always so, love, and you can't believe it, and then you look down the line,
Nonguseni Rossi and all that kind of thing, all
I
the
mean,
love,
perfect love at that time, and then give it a few years down the line, and then you wonder
what happened.
What happened? I mean,
so that's the control tactics, he starts using. And when a man is that controlling, then he is, that's the kind of man who will physically abuse women and girls and so on. The kind who has that mindset and who's very controlling and things like that. And some women say they don't even like to go out with their boyfriends or their husbands or their partners because they have to be like a horse, wear blinkers. They can't look this way, they can't look that way, because if a man comes in their line of vision, do you know him? Is that your boyfriend? Did you arrange to meet with him there? So it goes on, and that kind of man. Not all men. I'm talking about the men who are abusive and who have the potential to be violent and be abusive towards their partners and so on. These are the men.
Yes, but the sad thing is how some women actually fall into this control, and they find it difficult to actually get out of it. They think it's, I don't know,
normal,
normal.
Because what happens is this whole process of genderization. When we grow up, we are told how to be a female and how to be a male, and it's quite apart. Males have a lot of privileges, and we are taught to listen to all our male family members, cater for them, cook for them, clean for them. So we grow up like that, internalize, and we start believing it, we start acting it out. They have the power to control us. And unless we do this awareness and all this, we can't change the mindset.
Yes, it's very important. It's very difficult. I mean, Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can change the world. So this is through the awareness. And it's also great engine for personal development. I mean, for some women, they're educated, and they even find themselves getting a controlling partner like that. I mean, it even leads to murder sometimes.
Oh, definitely.
If they lose that control, and the woman actually is brave enough to walk away or whatever, and they turn around and actually, murder.
The highest risk for women in a married relationship is when she decides to leave. That is the highest risk of being killed. And in Fiji, we've seen that time and time again. Just this year alone, we have had 5 women murdered at the hands of their partners or husbands. 5 women who have been murdered. And I don't know how many others who have been classified as suicide. A lot of times when women die, the deaths are classified as suicide. We have managed to get 2 cases at least opened this year of where they were classified as suicide and so on, and the police commissioner and his team have been very good in, in addressing when parents have come up with the fact, with the doubts about how their daughter died, and so we've been able to advocate and lobby and have these things done. So, but at least 5 we know recorded this year who have been murdered, allegedly murdered, some are, murdered by their husbands. And every year, if you look at the statistics about murders, 4 women in 4 women in 2014, 5 in 2015, 4 in 2016, another one committed suicide, 2 in 2017, 2 committed suicide, and this year alone, 2018, 5 out of 5 murders at the hands of the husband.
Not on. Hey, but we'll be back soon on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hit. This is Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak Your Mind, our live radio talkback show with a delayed coverage shown on FBC TV. We have the company of Shamima Ali, the coordinator of the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, who has been giving her honest account of what women actually have to go through in life. And especially now that we've got the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women that started on the 25th November, and it all ends on Human Rights Day on the 10th. Now, Shamima, around how many women have actually come forward to the FWCC with their stories of abuse?
I would say this is our 35th year of existence.
I know, that is a long time.
And in that time, we have seen about, nearly 40,000 women who have gone through our doors with all kinds of abuse. But most of that abuse is domestic violence. So we're looking at about 1,000 or so a year, on average. And the lowest reporting is of rape. And, we believe that rape, only 10% of rapes ever get reported. The
Yes.
other 90% go unreported because most of the perpetrators are known and in protecting perpetrators, we discourage women from reporting rape. Yeah. So we've seen around that many women who have actually come and have been supported by us. And some have died, through domestic violence, either committing suicide and who came and who never came back again and things like that.
Like you said, how sometimes the men have affairs and it spurs them to commit suicide too.
Yeah, that, but also the daily emotional
all adding up.
All adds up, and depression and so on. And the other bad thing in our society is that we ourselves, for a long time, have taken it as normal. He's your husband. It's a private affair.
Yeah, don't interfere. Don't interfere.
Exactly.
But hello, someone could die. Ring the police now. I mean, even if it's the neighbors.
Yeah, and people do die, actually. Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on her not to report, that it's normal, and so on. So that women go through that when a girl is raped. There's so much shame on her rather than on the perpetrator.
Yes.
This whole thing with women's sexuality, and people mistake rape as people having mutually consensual sex. It's not like that. Rape is a terrible, unwanted, non-consensual sex and a crime that is committed on women's body. It is humiliating. It's degrading for the person to whom it happens.
Yes.
So we should never confuse it with a woman wanting to have sex and calling a man and things like that to do those kind of things to her. Yes, women do, like anywhere, men and women get attracted to each other, and if it's consensual, and they're of age, not underage, they are of age, it's up to them what they want to do. But when one party is saying, no, I don't want it, and the other one forces himself upon her or him, that is when it is rape. So, so that's what we have to be very, very, very clear about. There is a very clear line between rape and consensual sex.
Yes. So what would you say to a woman who probably has experienced rape and, what would you tell her to do? Report it?
I would say to her, call us, talk to us, come to our centers. We've got centers all around. Talk to someone about it. Someone will help you, and you can report it. It doesn't matter how long ago the rape happened. You can still report it. You can still report it, and we will support you through the whole reporting of that rape. But, and a lot of women suffer silently, and their lives are never the same, forming good relationships, trusting their partners, lack of trust in their partners and all those kind of things, depression, all kinds of mental health issues and so on. But that women can get over rape if the proper intervention, the appropriate, sensitive intervention occurs.
So I think it is quite a difficult thing to go through if you have charged someone of for rape and then you go to the court. I believe it's quite degrading for them because they have to bring up all the stuff.
Yes.
Oh, hang on, I think I've got someone on the line, Shamima. Just a second. Gold FM, this is Speak Your Mind. How may I help you?
Are you taking any calls?
Oh, yes, for sure. Who am I speaking to?
Michael.
Okay, Michael. So you have something that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I want to share with you something. Shamima seems to be painting the whole of male gender as the beast. We're all lurking out there.
No, I don't think she did. She said, no, she said the bad men. But anyway, we'll let her answer that. Carry on, Michael.
No, but can I say something else?
Sure.
It's all the time, it's always about rape and about women. I don't hear anything from Shamima, she's trying to sort the problem downstream. How about you go upstream and trying to urge women to raise, decent male kids? And then maybe over time, the problem will go away. There is also a moral underpinning to this, you can't solve this just by, regimes within the prison. You know, you got to get into the soul and the heart of the men. You know, you can't do that. You know, recidivism, if you're going to try and get rid of rape in men while they're in prison, why don't you try and get rid of robbery with violence or something else like that? Why only rape? So I think this, this focus on sort of women and rape and women's problem. What about, you know, there are lots of other women there who do good things. There are lots of other men there. And we don't seem to have the spotlight on those.
All right, Michael. Well, thank you very much for sharing your idea with us.
Yeah. And I just think Shamima has an agenda. You know, she's a NGO and she needs all this sort of like issues to be ongoing so she can get the funding from whatever or overseas organization gets it for. So, you know, like try and get it upstream. Try and get the women, get the message out there to women to raise really decent boys.
Oh, okay, that's a good point, and I'm sure Shamima has mentioned that already. But let's see what.
All I hear, you know, like when is she gonna stop? Where are the demarcation points for her advocacy?
Okay, but we have
it's always abuse to women, and then now she's overreaching into how women sort of get, you know, psychological abuse. Hey, you can't overreach into people's sort of relationships.
Okay, hang on. We'll let her answer.
No, I don't want to ask it. That's something for her to think about.
Okay, thank you.
You can't regiment people's lives. You know,
okay, thank you, Michael. Let her have her say now, please, Michael. Thank you very much for taking part.
Let me talk to her.
Okay, so really good points you have raised there, and it also shows what I'm saying. There's so much need for awareness, for people to know what is going on in this country, you know.
Just another thing, Shamima, because we are actually speaking because of the International Day for Elimination of Violence.
16 days of activism against violence against women.
That's why we happen to be
the
talking
reason,
about this.
I mean, you know, if you really follow the news and if you have done your background check, you know, some men get very agitated when we talk about this, because for once we're talking about women, because the norm is the men. You look at anywhere, you know, so it is a patriarchal society, and I really think we need to do that background check before we start talking about these things. How many women die? What about the children who are getting raped? Who's raping them? These are the facts. And you know what? There is no, and while women are getting beaten up, women die at the hands of men, children get raped at the hands of men, and so on, which is happening. And these are the bad human being men. There are lots of good human being men, and there are lots of men who are part of our program.
Right.
And I was going to talk about that later on.
Okay.
As long as that happens, I will never shut up. And women like me, the women's movement, we will not. Because we're talking about women's life. It's somebody's life, and it becomes everybody's business. So, you know, and I'd really urge, Michael, for you to come and talk to me. We'll meet somewhere at my office, and I will give you all the data and the statistics, and we can talk without getting upset and angry about it, because I'm very confident in what I'm doing, the center is doing. Throughout the world, there's a global movement. Yesterday, the Pacific Partnership was launched. Do you think these people don't know anything that, you know, or they're against men? When you have the European Union, the UN agencies, the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, the SPC, the Australian government together launching a program to end violence against women. That shows the epidemic that we are facing at this moment in time, not only in Fiji, in the Pacific, and in the world. So I really would urge Michael to come and talk to us.
Yes, thank you very much, Shamima, for that. I know you must get this quite a lot, but you know, I do admire you for the work that you've done, what you've achieved to be, you know, getting people responsible for committing the crime to actually pay for it. But we'll speak more about that soon. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. We have Shamima Ali, the Fiji Women's Crisis Center's coordinator, with us. And I would just like to ask you about your men's program, since we had someone very flustered who called up, but I'm sure you must get quite used to it. Yes. So, tell us about your men's.
I was going to talk about that. We have a program that started in 2001. With the Fiji military forces, and the gentleman who's our prime minister now was the commander at that time, and they requested, he sent someone to request that can we come and do some work within the military, because they recognized high levels of violence within military families as in other families and so on. And that was a really good move. So we started with the soldiers, with the army people, and we did that for about 2 to 3 years, and that was really good, because once we started on the gender awareness and so on, you could see in that room the emotions, and a lot of men realized, and then we continued with the male advocacy, realized that they were doing all these things because they had started believing it, the way they were genderized, and that there was a lot of unkindness and cruelty and so on. They recognized that. Of course, in a group of 25, 2 or 3 might fall by the way because they will never change. But most of the men in that room, I was really so proud, because I thought it was going to be difficult, but it was really good. So from then on, we've continued this program. It's men learning about these things, changing their own behavior and thinking, and changing other men in their spheres of influence. It's called Male Advocacy for Women's Human Rights. And I can tell you, there are a lot of good human being men who are out there, who are part of this program in Fiji, in Vanuatu, in Tonga, Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Cook Islands, throughout the Pacific, and so on. So we have a lot of hope in the men who are part of our program.
Yes, and we need men to support us.
And there's a lot of work to be done with boys also. And Michael kept saying mothers to raise decent children. What about the fathers? They're equal parents, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's fathers and mothers. The father stopped yelling at the mother, putting her down, beating her up, and things like that. That's role modeling, positive role modeling, stopping that kind of behavior.
Yes.
So bringing up children and teaching those great values of compassion, respect, kindness, and so on, is the onus is on the parents, father and mother, and guardians, and the whole community.
Exactly. But then again, I mean, when you think about all this, I mean, it's just equal rights. I mean, we're not wanting to have power over the men. And I'm sure that you don't only stand up for women, but I know that you're from the Fiji Women's Crisis Center.
Yes.
But I mean, it was through you that legislation that we got on domestic violence, which protects everyone in the family, not only women. So that's what I wanted to find out from you.
And at the crisis center, we have boys who have been raped by adult men.
Right.
We have gay men who have been, raped by adult men or other men, and so on. So we attend to them. There are men who come there. We don't advertise it widely. Men have emotional issues and so on. And if they call us and say, look, I need to talk to someone, we won't say, go away, you're a man. We deal with them. Or they come into the center. There are men who bring their daughters, who bring their sisters, because they have been abused by other men, with their husbands and so on. So it's not like a man against women thing. It's how we can get together. But before we get there, we need to talk about what the issues are. What is the situation for women and girls? Then we can start looking at solutions, which we have been over the years.
But it's very involved. I mean, because like when you say the parents to educate their children, and then what about if the parents break up? See, so that makes things more difficult.
Yes.
Then that's
definitely.
when the children left wandering around and start doing bad things.
But it's the home, it's the society.
Yes.
So it's school, our religious organizations, wherever children go, that's where our minds are shaped. Children's minds are shaped.
Right.
So if we all teaching the same values and practicing those values, teaching and practicing are two things that have to go together. You can't do one without, you have to teach and then you practice. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think if we all were of the same mind, admit there is this terrible crime amongst us, it's happening, our women are suffering, 64% of women. Read the papers, who's raping who, all that. What are we going to do about it as a society? Government is in, faith-based organizations are in. What about them? Or a lot of civil society organizations, international organizations are in. So, I think instead of this man-woman kind of fight, I think we need to come together.
Work together.
And that's what the 16 days of activism is about, bringing everyone together, with the same voice, ending violence against women, girls, and children.
Oh, what else? That's the right thing to do.
Yes.
I mean, you can never justify abuse in any form.
Yes. Exactly.
So just looking ahead, is there anything else that the Fiji Women's Crisis Center is looking at in, toughening up in laws or whatever is happening in this society?
Well, we are also, we're always monitoring and evaluating ourselves and monitoring other services and so on. We are very much part of the government's task force against violence against women. There's a real good strategy. Government, civil society, and development agencies have come together. So we're going to continue working with that, continue lobbying and advocacy, being the watchdog for women, girls, and children, and everybody else. People come to us, men come to us with brutality by the state. Somebody's police have beaten them up allegedly, or the military has been allegedly beaten. They all end up at the crisis center. So we continue lobbying for that, lobbying for human rights. I think that is our ongoing work.
Well, you have been doing fantastic work, I must say, Shamima. And unfortunately, this live radio talkback show has come to an end. And let's just look at it this way, that we do have men being abused by women as well, but as in a minority, I would say.
It's a very, very small percentage, and not the kind of violence that we're talking about when it happens to women.
Thank you very much, Shamima, and I hope you enjoyed the talkback today on Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits.